alone on the plains, Apache woman, her son, and a kind rancher. Maria woke early that morning, as she did every day, when the sky was still a soft shade of pink and the plains stretched endlessly before her. The wind whispered through the tall grasses, and the distant hills caught the first rays of sunlight. She could hear the quiet rustling of animals waking for the day. Rabbits hopping between tufts of grass, birds singing in the sparse trees that dotted the landscape, and the soft footsteps of her son, Tomas, as he tried to be as quiet as he could. Tomas was only 6 years old, but already he carried himself with a mixture of curiosity and carefulness that Maria both admired and worried about. He followed her closely as she moved across the open land, learning the ways of their people, the Apache. The plains were beautiful, yes, but they were also harsh, unforgiving, and full of hidden dangers. Maria knew that Thomas would have to learn quickly if he was going to survive in the world they lived in. They lived a simple life, one shaped by the seasons and the land. Their small family had built a modest shelter of wood and hides near a gentle creek that wound its way through the plains. In summer, the creek was their source of water, and in winter it froze just enough to provide a challenge but not a barrier. Maria spent her days gathering roots, berries, and herbs while also hunting small animals with her bow and arrow. She had learned these skills from her own mother and from watching the elders of her tribe. Tomas, meanwhile, loved to explore. He would chase after the rabbits and watch the birds, always asking questions about why the world worked the way it did. "Mother," he said one morning, tugging at Maria's sleeve, "why do the grasses sway even when there is no wind?" Maria smiled at his endless curiosity. She knelt beside him and explained, "The grasses move because the earth itself is alive. Even the tiniest wind we cannot see touches them. Everything is connected, Tomas. The land, the sky, the animals and people, they are all part of the same world." The boy nodded solemnly, as if he understood something far bigger than himself. Maria was proud of him but also worried. In this world, understanding was not always enough. The plains could be cruel, and not everyone who traveled through them had good intentions. She taught Thomas not only how to read the land, but also how to notice danger. She showed him the tracks of animals and the footprints of people, and she warned him that not all strangers were friendly. Despite the challenges, Maria cherished these mornings. She loved the quiet beauty of the plains, the smell of wet grass after the dawn dew, and the sound of the creek bubbling over stones. Life was difficult, yes, but it was theirs. Every small meal they shared, every shelter they built together, every sunset they watched, it all carried a sense of freedom that Maria treasured deeply. One morning as Maria and Tomas walked along the creek, she noticed a small group of deer grazing near the trees. She motioned for Tomas to stay behind the tall grass. "Stay low, Tomas," she whispered. "Watch quietly." Tomas crouched down, eyes wide, heart pounding with excitement. Maria nocked an arrow and aimed carefully. She had learned to respect the animals they hunted. They were not just food, they were part of the plains, and she took only what she needed. The arrow flew true, striking one of the deer. Maria moved swiftly, showing Tomas how to approach without startling the others. The boy watched intently as his mother worked efficiently, skinning and preparing the meat for the day. "Why do we have to take its life, Mother?" he asked softly. Maria knelt beside him. "Because, Tomas, this is how we survive. We honor the deer by using every part of it. Its body will feed us, its hide will keep us warm, and its bones will help us make tools. Nothing goes to waste. Life and death are part of the plains, and we must respect both." After they finished, Maria and Thomas returned to their small shelter. She hung the meat to dry and began working on repairs for the hunt. The wind had loosened some of the hides during the night, and she had to secure them carefully. Tomas helped where he could, learning the skills he would need one day. Maria felt a mixture of pride and sadness. She wished she could protect him from every danger, but she knew that the plains demanded strength and wisdom. As the day grew warmer, they rested under the shade of a nearby tree. Tomas leaned against his mother, munching on a small piece of dried meat. "Do you think we'll ever see other people, Mother?" he asked. Maria thought for a moment. Encounters with others could be both good and bad. "Yes, Tomas." she said slowly. But we must always be careful. Some people are kind, but some are not. The world is full of both, and we must know how to see the difference. Thomas nodded, though his young mind could not fully grasp the complexity. Maria knew he was learning, slowly but surely. Her greatest hope was that he would grow strong, clever, and kind, a boy who could face the plains with courage and heart. As evening approached, the sky turned golden, and the plains were bathed in a warm glow. Maria cooked a simple meal over a small fire, and Tomas helped by gathering dry twigs. They ate quietly, listening to the distant calls of coyotes and the soft rustle of the grass. Afterward, they sat together, watching the stars appear one by one. Maria pointed out constellations, telling Tomas the stories of their people and the spirits of the land. "See that bright one, Tomas?" she said, pointing to a star low on the horizon. "That is the spirit of our ancestors watching over us. They guide us and remind us of who we are. Even when life is hard, we are never truly alone." Thomas smiled, resting his head against his mother's shoulder. The vastness of the plains could feel lonely. But in moments like this, Maria felt a deep sense of peace. Night fell, and the temperature dropped quickly. Maria and Tomas huddled under their blankets, wrapped in the hides of animals they had hunted. Maria kept one eye open, listening for sounds that might signal danger. Tomas fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day's adventures. Maria stayed awake a little longer, reflecting on the world around her. The plains were beautiful, yes, but they were also unpredictable. A single misstep could change everything. She silently vowed to protect her son as best she could, to teach him the ways of the land, and to prepare him for the challenges that lay ahead. In these quiet moments, Maria felt both the weight and the beauty of her life. Every day was a lesson, every sunrise a chance to grow, and every decision mattered. She knew that the plains had much to teach them: patience, observation, and respect. Life here was not easy, but it was theirs. And as she watched Tomas sleep peacefully, she felt hope for the future. The plains stretched endlessly around them, a mixture of danger and wonder. Maria knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more learning, and more adventures. But for now, in the soft glow of the fire and the quiet night, she allowed herself a moment of calm. Here, on the plains with her son, she felt the deep bond between them, a bond that would guide them through the trials of life no matter what lay ahead. And so life on the plains continued, simple and harsh, beautiful and demanding, teaching Maria and Tomas the ways of the world, one day at a time. The next morning, the plains felt different to Maria. A strange tension had settled in the air, and even the birds seemed quieter than usual. She woke Tomas with a gentle shake, warning him to be careful as they stepped outside. The sun had barely risen, but the wind carried an odd scent, smoke, distant but unmistakable, drifting across the horizon. Maria's heart tightened. Smoke on the plains often meant danger, and she had learned to trust her instincts. "Mother," Tomas said, rubbing his eyes, "what is that smell?" Maria knelt to his level and looked into his curious eyes. "I'm not sure yet, Tomas," she replied calmly, though her mind raced. "But we must be ready for anything. Come with me." She quickly gathered their few belongings, careful to move quietly so they would not attract attention. The small supplies of dried meat, roots, and water were all they had to survive for the coming days. As they walked toward the top of the gentle rise, Maria scanned the horizon. The smoke was clearer now, curling above the distant hills. It looked like a fire, but Maria knew better. Fires on the plains could start by accident, yes, but this looked deliberate. Her chest tightened with worry. "We must move carefully," she said to Tomas. "Stay close to me, and do not speak unless I tell you." Tomas nodded solemnly, gripping her hand tightly. He had seen his mother prepare for hard times before, but there was a difference in her tone today, a seriousness that made him uneasy. Maria remembered the stories her own mother had told her, about travelers who had encountered strangers on the plains, and how quickly things could turn dangerous. She had survived by knowing when to hide, when to run, and when to trust. Now, she had to make the same choices for her son. They moved quietly across the open land, weaving through the tall grass and keeping low behind small mounds of earth. Maria's eyes never stopped scanning the horizon. The smoke grew larger and thicker, and she realized with growing fear that whoever was there might be moving closer. But she had no choice. They needed safety, and the nearest chance of shelter was the ranch she had spotted a few days ago while exploring the land.
"Mother," Tomas whispered, "do you think the fire is dangerous?"
Maria shook her head slightly, though her stomach tightened.
I don't know, she admitted, but we cannot wait to find out.
We must keep moving. The walk to the ranch was long and tiring. The sun climbed higher, beating down on them, and the plains offered no shade. Tomas's small legs grew tired, and Maria had to encourage him to keep going. She let him carry a small bundle of supplies, hoping it would give him a sense of responsibility.
"We are nearly there," she told him. "Just a little further." Hours passed, and the smoke seemed to shift with the wind, sometimes nearer, sometimes farther.
Maria kept glancing behind them, noting every sound, the distant thump of hooves, the crackle of dry grass, even the whisper of wind over the plains. Each noise could mean danger, and Maria's body stayed tense, ready to react at a moment's notice. She had taught Tomas to notice these things too, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Finally, late in the afternoon, the ranch appeared on the horizon. A few simple wooden buildings with fences and a windmill greeted them. Maria's heart lifted slightly. There was hope here. But she also knew that approaching strangers carried its own risks. Settlers and ranchers were often wary, sometimes hostile, toward native families. Maria reminded herself to stay calm, speak gently, and show that they meant no harm. "Mother," Tomas whispered, "do you think they will help us?" Maria looked down at him, seeing both fear and hope in his small face. "We can only try," she said. "We have no choice." As they approached, a figure appeared at the edge of the ranch, a man, tall and strong, with a wide-brimmed hat and cautious eyes. He carried himself with the confidence of someone used to responsibility, but his posture suggested he was unsure who approached.
Maria stopped at a respectful distance and raised her hand slightly, a gesture of peace.
The man studied them for a long moment before speaking. "Hello," he said slowly. "What brings you here?" Maria bowed her head slightly. "My name is Maria, sir. This is my son, Tomas. We have been traveling, and we are in need of help."
"Please, we mean no harm." The man frowned, clearly uncertain.
He looked from Maria to Tomas, then toward the smoke in the distance. "Where are you coming from?" he asked, voice cautious. Maria hesitated for only a moment. She knew she needed to be honest, yet careful. "From the plains to the west," she said. "We have been alone for some time. There has been danger, and we have no place to stay."
The man studied her carefully.
Something in her eyes, a mixture of strength, exhaustion, and determination, made him pause. He lowered his hat slightly. "I am Mr. Caldwell," he said. "I run this ranch. You are welcome to come inside, but you must understand, it is unusual for travelers like you to appear here." Maria nodded, grateful. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. Thomas tugged at her hand, wide-eyed but relieved. They were led into the main building of the ranch, a modest home with wooden walls and a hearth that smelled of wood smoke and cooking. Caldwell offered them food and water. Tomas's eyes lit up as he accepted a small piece of bread, and Maria thanked him quietly, feeling a wave of relief. For the first time in days, they felt safe. As they ate, Maria explained their situation carefully, without adding too much that might alarm him. She spoke of traveling alone, of the fires they had seen, and of the difficulties they had faced. Caldwell listened attentively, occasionally nodding, sometimes frowning. He asked questions, not out of suspicion, but out of concern for their well-being. By evening, Maria realized that Thomas was growing comfortable. He sat by the fire, eyes wide as Caldwell told him stories of the ranch and the animals they raised. Maria smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't known in days. For a moment she allowed herself to hope that perhaps they had found a place of safety, at least for the night. But Maria's relief was tempered by caution. She knew that the world beyond the ranch was unpredictable, and that danger could arrive at any moment. She kept a careful watch on Tomas as he slept, listening to the wind outside, thinking of the planes they had left behind, and wondering if they would ever return. That night, as the stars appeared outside the window, Maria reflected on the day. They had survived the journey across the plains, avoided immediate danger, and found shelter. But she knew this was only the beginning. The plains were vast and unforgiving, and her life and Tomas's were still uncertain. Yet, as she watched her son sleep peacefully, Maria felt a sense of hope. She had faced the plains before and survived, and she would do so again. And perhaps, with the help of kind people like Mr. Caldwell, they could find a way to live in safety, even if it was far from the land they knew so well. The plains had tested them, but Maria knew they had each other, and that bond, she realized, was stronger than any fear. The next morning the sun rose slowly over the ranch, spilling golden light across the wooden fences and wide fields. Maria woke early as always, though this time it was not just for her daily tasks. She felt a strange mix of relief and unease. The plains behind them were still wild, and though the ranch offered safety, she knew that danger could arrive at any moment. Tomas stirred beside her, rubbing his eyes sleepily, and Maria smiled softly. "Good morning, my little one," she whispered. "It is a new day." Breakfast was simple: bread, eggs, and fresh milk. Tomas devoured the food eagerly, his small face lighting up with each bite. Maria noticed the change in him. After days of walking, hiding, and worrying about the smoke on the plains, he seemed almost like a different child here. His laughter came more easily, and his curiosity returned.
Though Maria knew she could not let him forget caution.
After breakfast, Mr. Caldwell approached Maria.
"I hope you do not mind," he said, "but I have a few chores around the ranch. If you would like, you and Tomas can help. It will give you a chance to rest while also learning some skills." Maria nodded gratefully. "Thank you, sir. That would be helpful." Tomas jumped at the idea. "Can I help feed the animals, Mother?" he asked, eyes shining.
Yes, Thomas, but stay close and listen to everything Mr.
Caldwell tells you. For the rest of the morning, they worked alongside Caldwell's family. Maria helped with mending fences, cleaning small areas of the barn, and collecting firewood. Tomas followed a young boy named Sam, who showed him how to feed the chickens and carry water safely. Maria watched Tomas laugh and learn, a sense of relief washing over her. Here, for the first time in days, they were safe. But safety, Maria knew, was fragile. Around midday, a group of travelers appeared on the distant horizon, their movement stirring a cloud of dust. Maria's heart tightened immediately. She could tell from the way they moved that they were armed and not merely passing by. She felt Tomas tug at her sleeve. "Mother," he whispered nervously. "Who are they?" Maria studied the figures carefully. "I do not know," she said quietly. "We must wait and see." "Stay close to me." She led Tomas behind the corner of the barn, keeping him hidden while she observed. Her mind raced through possibilities. Some travelers were kind, some indifferent, but others could bring trouble. She had learned on the plains that appearances could be deceiving. The travelers drew closer, and soon the sound of hooves and voices reached the ranch. Maria noticed the tense way Caldwell stood, his hand resting near the gate as he watched them. The travelers stopped at the edge of the property, speaking among themselves, unsure of how to approach. Maria felt her pulse quicken. She did not want trouble here. Not for herself, not for Tomas, not for the kind man who had helped them. Hours passed, and the travelers seemed to linger, their intent unclear. Maria decided it was best to speak with Caldwell privately. "Sir," she said softly when he approached, "I am not sure who they are, but I fear they may bring danger. Perhaps we should be cautious." Caldwell nodded, frowning. "You may be right," he said. "We will see what they want, but we must protect everyone on the ranch." The travelers finally called out, asking if anyone could provide water and shelter. Maria's relief was tempered. They seemed in need, not aggressive, but she knew she had to be careful. Caldwell motioned for them to come closer, and Maria stayed beside him, keeping Tomas behind her. She watched closely as the travelers entered the property, noting every movement and word. The situation quickly became complicated. One of the travelers, a man with a stern face, asked for directions and food, while another complained loudly about being tired and hungry. Tomas clung to Maria, wide-eyed, unsure whether to be frightened or curious. Maria explained softly that some people were weary from travel, and that they must remain calm and respectful, even if others were not. By midday, it became clear that the travelers intended to stay longer than expected. Caldwell offered them temporary shelter, food, and water, but the travelers grew restless, asking questions about the ranch, the land, and its inhabitants. Maria remained quiet for the most part, helping Tomos understand the importance of listening rather than speaking too much. She knew their words could either calm a tense situation or inflame it. As the day wore on, the travelers began to challenge Caldwell's patience. They complained about the fences, the animals, and even the food, their voices growing louder. Maria felt a pang of worry. Tomas was watching the exchange nervously, and Maria held his hand, silently reminding him that courage often meant staying calm in the face of anger. Suddenly, one traveler stepped closer to Tomas, pointing and speaking sharply. Maria reacted immediately, stepping in front of her son and raising her voice firmly. "Do not speak to him that way," she said. Tomas clung to her, frightened, and Maria's heart raced. Caldwell intervened, speaking loudly to the travelers and restoring order. Maria could feel the tension easing slightly, but she knew it was only temporary. After the travelers settled down for a short rest, Maria took Tomas aside. "Do you understand why I stepped in?" she asked quietly. Tomas nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, Mother. I will be brave like you," he said. Maria smiled softly, though worry lingered. Bravery was not about fighting. It was about knowing when to protect, when to hide, and when to act. Later that evening, Maria helped Caldwell check the fences and animals, ensuring that the travelers had not caused any damage. The sun began to set, painting the ranch in deep oranges and reds. Maria took a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of the day. She realized that living near others brought both safety and new challenges. She had hoped that the ranch would be a refuge, but even here, she and Tomas were reminded that the world was unpredictable. That night, as Maria and Tomas prepared for bed, she spoke softly to her son about the day's lessons. "Tomas," she said, "the world is full of people who are tired, hungry, or afraid. Sometimes they act in ways that are difficult to understand. We must always be kind, but we must also be cautious. You are learning how to survive, but more importantly, you are learning how to be wise and compassionate." Tomas listened carefully, nodding. He had seen his mother protect him without anger, stand firm without cruelty, and guide him with love. These lessons, Maria knew, would shape him far more than the struggles of the plains ever could. The following morning, the travelers finally moved on, leaving Caldwell's ranch in peace. Maria and Tomas helped clean up the remnants of their stay, ensuring that nothing was left behind to cause trouble. Caldwell thanked Maria for her guidance and calm presence, acknowledging that her knowledge and instincts had helped maintain order. Maria smiled humbly, feeling a quiet pride. For the next few days, life at the ranch settled into a rhythm. Maria continued her daily chores and teachings with Tomas, while Caldwell and his family worked alongside them. The experience with the travelers had been a reminder that life was unpredictable, but Maria also felt a growing trust in Caldwell. He had shown patience, understanding, and fairness, a rare combination, especially for someone living on the edge of the plains. As the sun set each evening, Maria and Tomas would sit by the fire, reflecting on the day. Tomas asked questions about the travelers, about kindness, and about courage. Maria answered each one with care, ensuring he understood that true strength came from wisdom, not force.
"The plains teach us many things," she said one night, "but the people we meet teach us even more."
We must learn from both and carry their lessons in our hearts. Maria felt a deep sense of connection with the ranch, the land, and the people who had offered them shelter. Yet she also knew that challenges were still ahead. The plains were vast, and her life with Tomas could change at any moment. Danger could return in the form of fire, storms, or unkind strangers. She resolved to stay vigilant, to protect Tomas, and to guide him with patience and love. In these moments, Maria realized the true nature of survival. It was not just about food, water, or shelter. It was about understanding people, reading the land and knowing when to act and when to wait. The lessons of the plains were many, and she hoped that Tomas would carry them into adulthood, prepared for the world in all its beauty and unpredictability. And so, life continued on the ranch. The days were filled with work, learning, and small joys. Tomas grew stronger and wiser, and Maria felt a quiet hope that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The plains might be harsh, but the kindness of others, the bond between mother and son, and the lessons of courage and patience gave them a sense of purpose, strength, and hope for the future. The next few days at the ranch had been calm, but Maria could feel a change in the air. The wind carried a sharp chill, and the sky often turned gray earlier than usual. The animals seemed restless, and even Tomas noticed, tugging at her hand and asking questions she could not fully answer. Maria sensed that something was coming, though she did not yet know what. She taught Tomas to observe carefully the way the birds flew, the direction of the wind, and the sound of distant footsteps. In her heart, she prepared for a challenge they could not avoid. One morning, Maria woke to find Tomas shivering. He had caught a cold from the damp night air. She wrapped him tightly in blankets, giving him warm tea made from herbs she had collected near the creek. "Rest, my little one," she said softly. "I will stay with you." Tomas lay against her shoulder, his small body trembling, and Maria felt a surge of worry. His health was delicate, and she knew that sickness on the plains, or even at the ranch, could be dangerous if not treated carefully. As the day went on, Maria noticed that the sky was darkening unusually fast. Clouds rolled in, heavy and gray, and the wind began to howl across the open fields. The ranch creaked and groaned under the pressure of the storm, and Maria knew that this was more than an ordinary rain. She gathered Tomas close and helped Caldwell's family secure the animals and buildings. The horses were led to safer enclosures, the chickens gathered into coops, and supplies were moved indoors. By afternoon, the storm had reached its peak. Rain lashed the windows, wind bent the trees, and thunder shook the earth. Tomas clung to Maria, terrified of the noise and the force of nature around them. Maria held him tightly, speaking in calm, steady tones. "Do not be afraid, Tomas," she said. "We are safe inside. The storm cannot reach us here. We must wait and be patient." Her words were meant as much for herself as for him. Even with Caldwell's protection, Maria felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. Hours passed and the storm showed no sign of slowing. Maria worked tirelessly, checking on Tomas, ensuring he had warm drinks, and keeping him distracted with small stories and games. She noticed how exhausted Caldwell and his family had become, but everyone continued working, supporting one another. Maria admired their courage and realized how much kindness and cooperation mattered in moments of crisis. Late in the evening, disaster struck. A large tree near the edge of the ranch was torn loose by the wind and crashed down across part of the fence, scattering animals and supplies. Maria's heart leapt into her throat as she realized how close it had come to the main house. She ran outside with Caldwell, Tomas following closely behind, and together they began moving the animals to safety. The wind nearly knocked them off their feet, and the rain soaked them to the bone. Tomas slipped and nearly fell into a mud puddle, and Maria grabbed him just in time. "Mother!" he cried, clinging to her tightly. Maria held him close, feeling a mixture of fear and relief. "It is okay, Tomas. I have you," she whispered. Her own heart was racing, and she realized that even with the ranch as a safe place, nature could still be merciless.
The storm raged through the night.
Maria stayed awake, watching Tomas sleep in a small corner of the main room, his body exhausted from the fright and the cold. Every crack of thunder made her flinch. Every gust of wind made her tighten her hold on the blankets around him. She thought of the plains they had crossed, the travelers they had encountered, and the many dangers that could arise in a moment. She realized that survival was never simple. It was constant, unending vigilance. By morning the storm had passed, but the ranch bore the marks of its power. Trees were uprooted, fences broken, and small areas of farmland flooded. Caldwell and Maria began repairing what they could immediately. Thomas helped where he could, carrying small bundles of hay and picking up debris, but Maria could see he was still weak from the cold and fear. She encouraged him gently, reminding him that work could be healing and that together they could restore order. As the day progressed, Maria noticed a new danger: illness spreading among some of the animals. The rain and cold had weakened them, and Maria's knowledge of herbs and basic medicine became essential. She worked tirelessly tending to the animals, making poultices, and keeping Thomas and Caldwell informed. Her skill and calm presence were a steadying force for everyone. But it was not just the storm that tested them. Word came from a nearby ranch that a group of thieves had been seen moving across the plains. Maria's heart sank. Though she and Tomas were safe here, the world outside the ranch was still dangerous, and people with ill intentions could appear at any time. She realized that even the kindest places could face threats, and that vigilance was never over. Caldwell called a meeting of everyone on the ranch. "We must prepare," he said. "We do not know if these thieves will come near, but we will not be caught off guard. Everyone must help secure the fences, lock supplies, and watch for any sign of trouble." Maria nodded, quietly sharing her knowledge with him about the plains, the signs of approaching strangers, and how to read tracks in mud and grass. Caldwell listened intently, grateful for her insight. That night, Maria stayed close to Tomas again, whispering instructions and stories to keep his mind calm. The boy was brave, but he was still small, and the tension in the air made him restless. Maria held him tightly, feeling the full weight of her role. She had protected him from the plains, guided him through strangers, and helped him face fear. But now, even within the safety of walls and roofs, danger could not be ignored. The breaking point came unexpectedly. A loud shout echoed across the ranch. Maria and Caldwell rushed outside to see a group of men attempting to cut through one of the fences. Tomas, standing near the doorway, froze in fear. Maria grabbed his hand and pulled him back inside, shielding him as best she could. The thieves were strong, and though Caldwell confronted them with authority, the situation was tense. Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she realized how close danger had come to her son. Using her quick thinking, Maria suggested that they lead the men away from the main house, creating a diversion while Caldwell secured Tomas and the other family members. The plan worked, and though the thieves were eventually chased off, the event left everyone shaken. Tomas clung to Maria, tears running down his face, and she held him, whispering, "We are safe now, my little one. I will always protect you." Maria realized that no place could be completely safe, and that vigilance, courage, and quick thinking were essential for survival. Tomas learned the meaning of fear, but also the importance of trust and support. Caldwell and his family saw the strength of Maria's spirit, her wisdom, and the depth of her love for her son. Over the next few days, repairs were made, fences strengthened, and routines restored. The storm had passed, the thieves had gone, and life slowly returned to a semblance of normal. But Maria carried a quiet awareness that danger was always nearby, and that she could not let her guard down. He trained Tomas carefully, teaching him how to read the land, how to recognize threats, and how to remain calm under pressure. Sitting by the fire one evening, Maria spoke to Caldwell quietly. "The world is unpredictable," she said. "We cannot control everything. But with knowledge, patience, and courage, we can survive and even protect those we love." Caldwell nodded, his respect for Maria deepening. "You are right," he said, "and Tomas is lucky to have you guiding him." Maria looked at her son, asleep under a blanket, exhausted but safe. She realized that this breaking point, though frightening, had strengthened them all. Thomas had grown braver, Caldwell had grown wiser, and she had grown more certain of her role, not only as a mother, but as a protector, teacher, and guide. The plains might have been harsh, and the world beyond the ranch still full of dangers, but Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that challenges would continue, but she also knew that with courage, careful thinking, and the kindness of those willing to help, they could face anything together. And so, life at the ranch settled once more. a mixture of vigilance, work, and small joys. Tomas slept peacefully, the storm and the threat of thieves behind them for now. Maria reflected on the lessons of the past days, the strength of community, the importance of preparation, and the unbreakable bond between mother and son. Even in moments of fear, hope remained. Maria held Tomas close, silently promising that no matter what the world brought, she would never stop protecting him, teaching him, and guiding him through life. The days after the storm and the attempted intrusion brought a strange mix of relief and quiet reflection to the ranch. The sun rose slowly over the fields, casting a warm golden light on the repairs that had been made. Maria woke early, as usual, but this time her heart felt lighter. The danger had passed, at least for now, and she could finally allow herself a moment to breathe. Thomas stirred beside her, stretching and yawning, his small face already bright with curiosity despite the events of the past days. "Good morning, Tomas," Maria said softly. "How did you sleep?" "Better than before, Mother," he replied, smiling. "I wasn't as scared." Maria felt a wave of relief. Even though he had been frightened during the storm and the thieves' attempt, he was learning resilience. Every day, she realized, he grew stronger, braver, and more aware of the world around him. Maria had always known that life on the plains was unpredictable, but she also knew that Tomas's courage came not just from her teachings, but from the experiences he had faced and survived. Breakfast was quiet, a time to reflect and restore calm. Caldwell joined them at the table, offering warm bread and milk. "You both did well," he said, looking at Maria and Tomas with respect. "Not everyone could have handled the past few days so calmly and wisely." "Maria, your knowledge and calm thinking saved the ranch from even more trouble. Tomas, you stayed brave through it all." Tomas beamed, proud to hear the praise. Maria placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "You were brave, my son," she whispered. "But bravery is not only about facing danger. It is about listening, observing, and helping others when you can. That is what makes you strong." The morning passed in a quiet rhythm. Maria and Caldwell worked together to repair the broken fences and secure the animals. Tomas helped where he could, carrying small bundles of hay and checking the chicken coops. Every action was a lesson: how to work together, how to prepare for future challenges, and how to find patience even when the work seemed endless. By afternoon, Maria realized that she had a chance to reflect on what had happened and what the future might hold. She walked to the edge of the fields, looking across the wide plains, the place that had both tested her and shaped her life. She thought about the days when she and Tomas had been alone, facing the dangers of the land, and about the kindness of Caldwell and his family. In her heart, she understood that life was full of both hardship and generosity. It was the people you met, the bonds you formed, and the lessons you learned that defined how you survived and thrived. Caldwell approached quietly. "You seem deep in thought," he said. Maria smiled faintly. "I am thinking about the future," she replied, "and about how fortunate we are to have found each other here." He nodded. "You and Tomas are welcome here," he said. "I see the care you give him, the wisdom you carry. You belong here, at least for as long as you choose." Maria felt a warmth in her heart. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to hope, not just for survival, but for a life of peace, learning, and growth. Over the next few weeks, life at the ranch settled into a comfortable routine. Maria taught Tomas how to care for the animals properly, how to plant and harvest crops, and how to read the land for signs of weather or danger. Caldwell welcomed her guidance, recognizing the value of her knowledge from the plains. Tomas learned quickly, and Maria's pride in him grew every day. She also realized that their presence was slowly changing the ranch in subtle ways. Her careful attention to detail, her ability to anticipate problems, and her gentle guidance were making the ranch more secure, more efficient, and more compassionate. One afternoon, as Maria worked in the garden, she noticed Tomas helping a young calf that had wandered too close to the fence. The boy's hands were careful, gentle, yet confident. Maria felt a surge of pride. "You have learned well, Tomas," she said, kneeling beside him. "You are strong, careful, and kind. That is what matters most." Tomas smiled at her, his eyes shining with pride and trust. Caldwell, watching from the doorway, approached. "Maria," he said. "I am grateful for all you have taught Tomas and for the way you have helped here. The ranch is safer and stronger because of you. Your presence has made a difference." Maria shook her head gently, humbled. "I only do what I must," she said softly. "But it is true. We all help each other survive." As the months passed, Maria and Tomas became part of the small community of the ranch. They shared meals, celebrated small events, and worked together on the land. Tomas grew taller, stronger, and more confident. He began to ask questions about the larger world, about people they might meet beyond the ranch, and about the lessons he would need to carry with him as he grew older. Maria answered each one patiently, teaching him about courage, wisdom, and kindness. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant colors over the plains, Maria sat beside Caldwell on the porch, watching Tomas play in the yard with other children from nearby ranches. "It is strange," Maria said softly. "I never imagined we would find such peace after everything we faced on the plains." Caldwell nodded. "Life can be unpredictable," he said. "But when you find people willing to help, when you find courage and kindness in unexpected places, life becomes meaningful. You and Tomas have brought that to this ranch." Maria felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had survived the plains, the storms, and the dangers of the world. She had guided her son through fear and uncertainty, and now, here, she had found safety, friendship, and hope. She realized that life was not just about surviving, it was about growing, learning, and sharing what you had learned with others. The ranch had become a place of teaching and learning. Maria continued to instruct Thomas on the ways of the land, but she also shared stories with Caldwell and the other ranch workers about the plains, the animals, and the wisdom of her people. Her stories were not just entertaining. They carried lessons about observation, patience, and respect for life. The adults listened carefully, and Tomas learned that wisdom could be shared across generations and cultures. One quiet afternoon, Maria sat with Tomas by the creek that ran near the ranch. The water reflected the sky, and the gentle sound of flowing water brought a sense of peace. Tomas looked up at her. "Mother," he asked, "will we ever go back to the plains?" Maria thought carefully. "Perhaps one day," she said. "But we have learned that the world is full of challenges. We must be prepared for them, and we must carry what we have learned with us wherever we go. The plains will always be a part of us, but now we also have a place where we are safe and can grow." Thomas nodded, understanding more than his years suggested. He had faced fear, learned courage, and discovered the importance of kindness and trust. Maria smiled, knowing that he had grown into a boy capable of facing the future with wisdom and heart. Over time, Maria began to think about the future in ways she had never allowed herself to before. She considered establishing a small homestead near the ranch, a place where she and Tomas could live independently while still remaining part of the supportive community Caldwell had provided. With his help, she built a modest shelter, planted a small garden, and prepared for the seasons ahead. Tomas helped eagerly, proud of their work and the life they were creating together. As the first flowers bloomed in her garden, Maria felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had faced storms, threats, and uncertainty, yet they had survived and grown stronger. Tomas was thriving, the ranch was safe, and the bonds they had formed with Caldwell and his family had become lasting and meaningful. Maria realized that life's trials had given them something invaluable: courage, resilience, and hope. One evening, as the sky turned pink and orange, Maria watched Thomas run across the fields, laughing freely. She knew that the future would still hold challenges, but she also knew they were ready. Together, they had faced fear, learned trust, and discovered the power of kindness. Life on the plains had taught them survival, but life at the ranch had taught them community, hope, and the joy of shared work and love. Maria turned to Caldwell, who stood beside her, and said quietly, "Thank you for everything, for your kindness, for your patience, and for giving us a chance to build a new life." Caldwell smiled, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "It is you who made it possible," he said. "Your courage and wisdom have guided us all."
As night fell, the stars appeared above the plains, bright and steady.
Maria held Tomas close, feeling the deep bond between them, a bond forged through struggle, survival, and love. She knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together, with courage, wisdom, and hope. The plains had been harsh. Life had been difficult. But together, mother and son had found safety, community, and the promise of a better tomorrow. And so, the story of Maria and Tomas came full circle. From the vast, lonely plains to the safe, welcoming ranch, they had endured storms, dangers, and uncertainty. They had learned to survive, to trust, and to thrive. The kindness of a stranger, the strength of a mother, and the curiosity and courage of a son had transformed their lives. Life continued, not without challenges, but with hope, love, and the knowledge that together they could face anything the world might bring.